camera is running. Everything's running. Okay. Welcome to my talk about open source and money. First, I would like to ask you, is there somebody who contributed to some GitHub project in any way? Even created issue? Cool, almost everybody. And how many of you do you have some package of your own on GitHub? Almost third. Awesome, awesome. Today I will try to convince the rest of you to do the same. What I do, I'm kind of moving to open source consultancy, which is helping company to open source their code in a way that is profitable for them and for the users. And I also mentor developers to learn faster and better. We have 3 points on the program today. Briefly, just some of the open source in this year, and then I'll try to show you how open source can positively influence hiring and programming and developers' development. This is a picture. I don't know if you can see it, but it shows what kind of software was the best selection for some kind of era. Here's like up to 2000. It was private proprietary software. Then came freemium, which you can like install and run, and if you want more, you can pay for it. And we are slowly moving to open source in 2010. With this, I would like to ask you, how many of you use some MVC open source framework like Symfony, Laravel, Nete in your projects? Cool. And how many of you do you have your own framework? Cool, cool. So, kind of my vision or my hopes are that in the future people will go not only using open source, but also making most of their code open source, so they could share it with others. And when I mean open source, I don't mean like you create something valuable and you put it on the internet and just be a charity, but to really make profit. For example, like TensorFlow, which is AI machine learning from Google. This is a little bit blurred, but it should show that developers are really attracted to open source code with a high quality, and that is attributed to some company that has a great name. For example, GitHub, which was recently also acquired by Microsoft, kind of shows that open source is also a way for commercialization. This is just draft from a talk with GitHub CEO, the former one, that also suggests that there is a connection between software and business. The same came also to Apple, not only Google, Facebook, and all these companies, but even Apple is now trying to move to open source and get some developers to attract. Recently, I found out that they even partially open source part of their kernel, which is quite curious. I think a year ago. And that way we get to open source hiring. I think there is also a very similar way to look at hiring by using open source. Because if you have a private code, you don't have a way to communicate to developers. You can't show them what you did. They don't know what kind of quality does your code have. So if you are moving to open source and people can actually look on your code on GitHub, they can know you before they even go to a meeting with the company. Because classical hiring is like you have just some job offer, you post it on some services, you pay for it for a month fee, then some developers will come, you have to talk with them in person, do some review, find out if they are lying or not about their skills, have some testing, and often it's not very easy to find out in the first 30 minutes that the developer is skilled or not. So you will have to find out by actually hiring him and hoping that it will work for the best. I think with the open source way, it's a little bit better, because all you need to do is have some code that anyone can visit, for example, machine learning code on GitHub. And then if I want to approach this company, I will check the code and see, is it good, is it bad, can I learn something, can they, actually can I move this company somewhere? So this is kind of like, the filter is for free, it's kind of mutual. So if the code is too complicated for you, you probably won't apply. And if it's too shitty, you won't apply either. And you can also test the company, or company that can test you by asking you to send a pull request or just to cooperate with some feature on the code. And also, I think what is the biggest point, that the great developers try to be open and public about their skills, so they're attracted by projects that are famous. For example, with this TensorFlow, I think many the top heads in the industry are trying to contribute to this package, because for them it's kind of like credit. I mean, you can like show you did some work, and you can spread your ideas with others. This is also what kind of like community of open source education can look like. These kind of people, you know this one? Okramius, yeah, Marko Piveta from Doctrine. Most of them are around Doctrine or Symfony. These are from Czech Republic, maybe you know them. And I learned a lot from these guys just by talking with them on GitHub, issues, pull requests, nothing personal. I didn't have to pay them, I didn't have to make a lecture. So it was really moving in educational way for me, because it was free, and it was when I needed, or when I needed some feature. It was not like 8-hour lecture about Doctrine, but it was this feature here and now. Compared to a classic education, when you, for example, let's say you want to implement Elasticsearch and you have no idea how to do it. So there are a few ways how to do it. You can hire a mentor that will explain to you how to do it, or you can try to learn yourself by trial and failure, like AI, or you can just implement it because you need it really fast and you need just the project worked, which can turn really bad because you have kind of like feeling it works very well, but then you find out you have created some legacy code. In open source education, I think this is really different. That's what I already said. If you want to implement Elastic in your project, you can, for example, if you have Symfony, you can download Symfony, implementation of Elastic, some plugin or bundle, and just step by step try to make it use. Because there are guys who will help you, there's README, there are issues, you can like learn it just for the framework you use. And another topic is how open source code is good for the project. Because if you are at home and you are in a private, you have some standards on how you or the code looks. But if you go out to the public, if you go here, you probably won't wear pajamas, but something a little bit fancier. And the same thing, in my experience, works for code. So if you have some private code, all you need to do is to make it work. You don't care about tests, you don't care about design patterns, about coding standards, static analysis, etc. But if you put it out, you want to be looking really, really good. And there are also standards that will help you with that. It's not like you have to reinvent something, but you have to just learn that there are some framework interoperability group that is trying to standardize how code looks, what are interfaces for various design patterns. They actually came with PSR autoloader and this kind of stuff. So you can just adopt what there is, and your code will become much more understandable to others. Which is kind of one of my main points, that it's much easier to build on the shoulders of others than to start building a project of your own. Actually, most of these ideas are not my own, but I steal them from these two books. That Still Like an Artist is a book that Honza lent me, thank you, which is about not only art, but also about coding, work, sharing, learning, using, trying. And The Innovators is a great book about how hardware and software were born, how internet were born, and the main ideas there is about collaboration and sharing the ideas. Because all this knowledge is like a cathedral. You learn something, you put one brick in it, and then somebody else will find out that you made this cool project on GitHub and will try to move it a little bit farther and a little bit farther. And I think that's much more easier than if everyone would be developing their own wheel in private. So why not use the best we can? To this talk, I made a little microsite that tries to share, tries to promote open source of Czech companies. At the moment, there are 4, because I think these companies deserve to be seen. And actually, if you want to, if you think about these companies, you can just go to GitHub there and check the code, and you will have much more information than just from the job posting. There are few projects just to use, and that's kind of end of my talk. And if you have your own open source project in your company, feel free to share it. Thank you.